G'day and welcome to another chapter on the CB750. I'm sort of throwing videos out on this thing at the moment because I just wanted to have a nice quick winter job. Of course, nothing's quick. There's always bits and pieces get in the way. Now in this chapter, it's sort of the last chapter of sort of looking around the bike, hunting around it, sort of seeing what I can find. I've got it now ready to do the compression test and the oil pressure test. I've got a gauge on it, done the tappers, checked the points, done the points, adjusted the cam chain tensioner. Couple of different ways of doing that. There's one where it's on top dead center, 15 degrees after, and of course then you just let the thing go into the chain and we're all good. There's another one that says you have the bike idling. I don't even know which one to do, so I just did it by the stationary method. Looking to switch gear, fixed up all the sort of the engine start and kill switch, that sort of thing, just to get ready for the actual test. Now, I mentioned this at the end. I've just filmed the end part, but I'll mention it again here at the beginning. The next chapter after this is all about carburetor overhauling. If the thing gets compression and oil pressure, we're good, we can do the carburetors next. If the engine test has been a bit knackered, well, the next one's going to be about pulling it apart. So anyway, look, this is the last of the explosive ones. I've digressed and done bits and pieces here. It's been a bit disorganised, sort of doing little bits as I see. I'm a car mechanic, I'm not a bike mechanic. So I think we're good. Hope you enjoy. Right, well, I thought this was original stuff, but I might well be wrong. In fact, I'm quite positive I'm wrong. These little things that move the handlebars up and further back, I assume to sort of make a more relaxed riding position. I'm going to ditch them now. You can see the serrations inside there. So that's where the bars, those knurling sort of marks originally sort of sit in there, and these went sort of in there like that, if you can understand what I mean. They're held in by 2/8 by 1.25s. This one, of course, is all rusty, and that came out of there. And, of course, the original bolt, I'm assuming, was the one that went in there now. Oops, I've just dropped it. So, by sort of taking that off and then relocating it there, I can move the bars back. Now, these are stepped. This one's a little bit higher up than that one, so they only go one way. And we need to look at the manual to ascertain which way that is. I'll look into that, but I'm going to take these off because I don't want to use them. One of the reasons for that, aside from it looking a bit awkward, is the fact that the clutch cable's so strained. Now, turning left, you can play music off that, and you can see it's pulling down from, I don't know if you can see there, yeah, it's pulling down from the grip there. Turning right's not an issue. I'll just hit the camera, because it does allow a bit of slack, but that, in my view, is a little bit dangerous. I'm going to take those off now. Oh, we'll just get a bit scratchy. Yuck. These ones don't seem to be that affected with rust, I guess, because it's not sort of in a rebate, if you know what I mean, where water can gather. Anyway, we'll pop that off and we're rid of them at last. Now, this was a tap and die set my brother bought me for my 15th birthday in 1982. I remember it quite well because I had Japanese bikes back then. I had a couple of them. I actually ended up having quite a few of them. And of course I haven't used it that much because everything I've done since then has been imperial. So my taps consist of 3/8, 7/16 and quarter basically. But this is all metric, so I can use it on this, which is what he originally bought it for. And yeah, I've sort of hung on to it. It's moved house with me a few times and I can't get that out. And it's been tremendous. So I can just pull these out. I just want to run a tap through here to make sure they're clean because I might throw a bit of CRC down there actually. That feels... And we can just clean those threads up where the rust has been. And we just cut back off, just do it like that. Grease is a good thing to stick on these because the greasy swarf will stick on the tap. But look, this is cutting very, very easily, so the tap isn't jamming. But with things with blind holes, which I think this is, yes, we do need to make sure that the swarf has somewhere to go. There we go, that's cool. Just give this a bit of a clean off and going for the second one. These ones here look pretty good, and already that thread looks a heck of a lot better than it did. I don't know how visible this is going to be. Honda have actually put a dot there and another there, which lines up with the cut or the join, which is where the bar's meant to go. recall how these go. I'll have to look in the book, I'm not sure. I'm using new hardware. Now there's a way to do this, there's a gap. I haven't read the book, so don't do this until you've read it, the manual. You can download the manual for free from the site. And they're the same as the clamps on the front axle. There'll be a way to torque these down, a way to tighten these properly. Don't forget that I intend fully to take all this apart again. And we can also put our lovely recoated lock on, which will sit in behind there. Whatever the case, I want this on, just for cranking the thing over. There we go. And it's got the steering lock bit that goes in there off that peg. And we can tighten that up too. Yep. All right. So we're good. We can check the integrity of this lock by moving it over. Beautiful. Look at that. So lock this up. Yay! Don't knock the camera over. Is that locked? No, that's excellent. Cool. Now, for starting the bike, that's all I'm interested in. I've got to put the throttle back on. I'm not interested in the instruments or the warning lights. I can see if it's in neutral. And also, don't forget, we're going to use a different type of oil pressure gauge. So I'm not interested in lights or instruments. I know the tack works just from fiddling around with the cable with my fingers. So we're almost ready to get to that sort of stage now. The seat lock isn't important. That's all fixed up. That can go on later. If this thing runs well, I'll take all this stuff off. And I'm going to clean up all the top of the frame. Or clean up the whole frame with the engine in situ, as I mentioned before. Get new things like that, the tank mount rubber. Take all that out, take the wiring out, really clean it up so it looks like it's restored when it's finished. This is a bit of a no-no doing this. I can't get that oil pressure switch out, and I want to get it out because I want to put that manual one in. Assuming that I might have to turn down and rethread some sort of brass adapter. I'm not sure that it's going to be so successful. Now, this thing here, that's an oil gallery along there. I took that out, hoping I had an adapter to fit that, but it's not tapered. It's just a normal metric thread. Take that out. There's a chain sensor with a good quality gasket still there, so that's cool. Should be able to get this switch out now. This is just a pain. I haven't got the proper socket. I'm going to have to buy one. I'm going to pop that out. It looks like the standard. I need one anyway because I use these are the same as the car ones, and that's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. And they've got the oil gallery hole there. I just put a bit of Teflon tape around there. You don't really need to because it's a tapered thread, but I always use it anyway. Even on electrical ones, you'll find, I don't know where I put the switch, I might have left it on the bench over there. You'll find that the thread will actually cut through the Teflon, so it'll maintain a good continuous earth, if you know what I mean. You can always test that with a test light if you're worried about it. We don't have to over tighten it, it'll do. And then this little capillary type oil pump has a little oil gauge, I should say. It has a little, what do you call that thing? Olive there, which you just plug that in and nip it up so that when we're doing compression tests and all that sort of stuff, we can actually start the bike, we can actually see what it's doing. Whoops. There we go. And we can even just cable tie that somewhere. Let's put that there for now. I just want to put that tensioner back in. That'll do. I can at least get to it and read it. So before I do anything, I want to check valve clearances. Using a 17mm ring spanner, don't use an open end on these things, you're just going to round them off. Just a ring spanner will do the trick nicely. Oh, that was tight. And we can pop all those off. I have to take that cable out again just to gain access. That one's a bit tighter too. So the plan is now, take the points cover off down here, set it up, do the valve clearances, they're 2 and 3 thousandths I think, and then we can do the cam chain tensioner again because I want the engine to be quiet. If it runs, I don't even know if it goes in. So we'll do that now. Well, change of plan. I forgot to do take the filter off. Now, These are horrendous to get off. I'm using a single hex 12mm, and I'm going to try. Oh, I got it. They are terrible. I remember having trouble with these years and years ago. I just want to take this oil filter off. And apparently there's a washer, well, there is a washer. Can I get that off? There we go, just let it drain a bit. That quite often gets chucked out with the oil filter because it sticks to the rubber sort of gasket part of the filter. Now I made a comment about synthetic oils in the last video and said, of course we've got mineral, we don't want synthetic. Now somebody chimed in with that and said, oh, what's wrong with synthetics? Now, to be honest, synthetics are better. But with old engines, the comment was made, whoa, that it wreaks havoc with older seals and stuff like that. There's the filter there. Now, I don't like them because, or at least I don't use them in older engines, because I'm coming from an automotive mechanic, or a car mechanic's point of view, in that they have a, let's take this off, they have a tendency to be much more slippery than mineral oils, and therefore, you know, flat tablet cams don't like them. They tend to stop the lifter sort of rotating and can chew lifters out. Now, the other side of it is they appear to break down a lot quicker than a mineral oil, and I've pulled engines apart, and pulling this apart is one thing, and you can see how black and worn that oil is. Now, I've pulled engines apart a lot of car engines that have had oil that shouldn't be lubricating still. It should be well and truly past its date, or at least it is, and the engines are still fine. Now, I've also had a couple of friends, one of them had a Mazda 3 that didn't change her oil. She had it religiously changed every 12 months, but did 20,000 Ks, and it ended up chewing half her engine up because she didn't change it. They seem to break down a lot quicker than mineral. Now, of course, that's all just opinion. I'm going to have to do this on the bench. That's all just opinion, so there are going to be people that don't agree with that. That's just my take on it. You can use synthetics, but just be careful with them, and make sure you keep your oil changes well and truly up. You don't miss any. Okay. Right. So, I'm going to put that down. I've got it. The old oil thing I had a proper, had a little shelf you could put your oil filter on. I just don't want to get crap all over the garage floor. I also want to look in the bottom of that to make sure it's not full of debris and muck and snot and all that sort of stuff. There's the spring, and the washer's missing. So it has an oil change at some stage. That's just dirty. It doesn't look like it's got anything in it. I'll have a close look after. That's what I could do with the thing. Okay, let's just stick it on a rag for now. Okay, so I need to find this flat washer, or at least find one that'll substitute that quite easily. So I think now we'll just clean this out. Just have a look in there. The pan, I mean, it's mucky in there, but there's nothing rough in there. It's just full of crap, basically. It's just dirty. So the washer's been lost between the spring that holds the filter against the block and the oil filter itself. There's a rubber seal there on either side. These seem to be able to be fitted either way. It doesn't really matter that much. Now, when I took it out, apparently, according to forums and all this sort of stuff, those steel washers stick onto that rubber, and of course people discard them with all the dark coloured oil. They don't see them, and of course they just reassemble them with the spring against this rubber, and that was the way the other one was fitted in this engine. And it had sort of dug its way into the rubber, and it wasn't particularly satisfactory. Now, it's not hard finding a washer that fits on there, but the problem with it is getting one that fits against the rubber, because this one, for example, wouldn't seal. It's sitting away from the rubber. I'm not sure if you can see in there. It's sitting a good, probably 1.5 millimeters out, which means I think the engine draws its oil. Yeah, it draws through this way and then goes into the block that way through the centre. I think it sort of goes back into the engine that way. At the end of the day, you don't want it like that. So I've just taken that and ground it down. I'm not at work at the moment, just at home, and I've just got a grinder here. So that will sit against that seal properly. Now, if you do decide to grind a washer down, just make sure you deburr it and linish it really, really well, because you don't want anything at all in terms of, you know, filings or whatever coming off. So it's imperative. I might go over that with wet and dry, really clean it up so it's dead smooth to the touch, and there's no chance of anything coming off and getting into the engine. I don't think it would. I think it would sit in the canister first, but at the end of the day, that will suffice. And the spring can sit sort of against there, and then we're good to go. So there we have our housing all nice and clean. We can just pop the spring in, then the washer, then the filter, whoops, and then back on the engine. So a bit of oil around the seal. I don't know if we can see where you are. I'm just going around there with some fresh oil, and then screw it on. If I can figure, I think it goes that way. This needs to be medium, what do you call it? Blasted really, because it's pretty dirty. I just threw a bit of silver paint on it. Looks pretty rubbish, but... Alright, so we put a bit of oil in. Now I didn't fill the oil filter up with oil. It's on an angle, so you're only going to get very minimal benefit from it. And I'm only going to be turning it over by hand with the plugs out sort of thing. A lot of engines are such that you can't fill the oil filters up. For that reason, they're mounted sideways or whatever. I've never ever seen an engine blow up as a result of that. I'm just going to take this tack drive out again. It's going to get in the way. I'll just take the whole cable out actually. Put that over to the side a bit, it's all good. Now the easiest way I reckon of taking the plugs out is to just put a bit of fuel line just over the end of the plug. And it just makes it easier to just unscrew them. And they come off easily, you don't have to worry then. So we'll take all the plugs out. Just pop these off. Probably should have blown a bit of compressed air there to stop anything flying into the engine. Just want to take all these off. Just take our little socks out. And now the engine should rotate nice and freely, which it does. Next thing is to pop off a little points cover. And so we want to do the valve clearances and adjust the cam chain. Timing and that sort of thing can come later. So I've lost my small tripod, so I might have to hold the camera. I'm just hoping I can hold it still enough. Very difficult to see. We're looking in that hole. There's 2 and 3. We want 1 and 4. I can't see where I'm at the moment. Ignore this imperial spanner. There's 1 and 4 there. So there's an index mark up there. I'm just hoping you can see in there. There's F for fire, and there's T for timing. Right. So these are tight. Number 4. Number 1's rocking. Number 2 exhaust should be rocking, which it is. And number 3 inlet should be rocking as well, which it is. Right. So we can check all those 4 in this position here. So I've pulled my feeler gauge apart. You can see the feeler gauges sort of hang out both sides of that. 2 thousandths is the inlet, 3 is the exhaust. I'm going to do all these ones pertinent to number 1, and then I'll come and I'll sort of film it a bit closer on number 4 because it's sort of easier to see. Right, so I've done number 1 at top dead centre. Now I've got number 4 at top dead centre. Again, we're just putting the thicker of the 2, which is the 3 thousandths one in the exhaust side. These are both rocking. You can hear them. I'm going to feed that in there. I've actually taken these out of my feeler gauge setup. And there's still clearance on both valves. So we're just basically going to loosen one off. Put a screw stick in the grub screw in the centre. Now sometimes it's got a nice little bit of resistance there. Sometimes when you nip them up, your reading changes. Like that's a little bit looser. I might just go a tiny bit more. There we go, there, that's only a tiny bit, and that's nice. Of course, once we've done each one, we can just cap it off. So we know we've been there. And these are just loose still. So then we'll try this one here. So I'm just going to crack it, put a screwdriver in the top. This one's got a bit on it. Okay, that's locked up there. Hold it steady and nip it up. And there's no movement there at all, so that's good. And that's basically it, and of course, get in. Oh, that feels a little bit stiff. Nonetheless, it's all good. Let's go for this one here. That one doesn't feel too bad at all. Best to use a ring spanner. Oh, that one's... yeah, that one was pretty much on, right on, I think, there. I reckon that's good. Cool. We don't want to forget to nip these up. Oh, we've got a siren in the distance. Right, so we've got all the valve clearances done, all nipped up. All these little tappet adjustment screws are off, or on, sorry, and tightened, except number one over there. And what we're going to need to do now is to flick that around another 360 degrees. Okay, there's 1 and 4. Now if I go top to center, now I've got to go back 15 degrees. Now before I do that, I just want to see that they're rocking. Yep, we're good. I can hear a car alarm going off. I don't think I've ever met anyone that gave a rat's when a car alarm went off. Right, I'm just going to mark that there. This is the texter. 90 degrees would be sort of around here somewhere, I would think. Half of that would be 45. Actually, I'll mark it up there. So in the middle of that casting, half will be 45, which is probably kind of there. And then we cut into thirds, so there. That'll be about 15 degrees there. So if I move it sort of in line with where the screw is, I guess, where this screw is, that should give us the 15 degrees we need, I reckon. So, let's have a crack at that. If I move it to there. Coming! That's about all it is. 15 degrees is very, very little. So that would be it there. If you can see that mark in there, I reckon, lined up with that screw would be about 15 degrees. Now we can do the cam chain. We can just undo our lock nut. Probably should have used the open-ended part for that. Undo this a little bit. And that should allow the chain tensioner to sort of ride against the chain a bit harder. And then just do that lock nut up. Right, point gap's supposed to be 12 to 16 thousandths. We've got 14 here, and it's very, very loose, so I might just close that a bit. Should probably run a points file. Oh gosh, that's going to be... well, that's not good. Right. Just loosen a little bit, and I'm finding room here. I'm going through the tripod. I can't really... and my eyes are rubbish. What's that like? That sounds pretty good, or looks pretty good. I'll just nip that up. Should probably get a bit of, yeah, might get a little bit of wet and dry on there. I've seen mechanics at my old work, this is just a bit of 400, really fight to get cars going, because when you first buy points, they've got a sort of a very fine film of oil on them for packaging, and if you don't wipe that down the cuff of your overalls, quite often they won't make contact. Perfect. Alright, then I'll do the front ones, and we should be good. Right, so that should be safe to kick over now. That's good. Excellent. Well, what we don't know is if the electric starter works. I'm going to have a look at that now. So we'll just undo this from the starter solenoid. This is the feed to the starter motor. I'm sort of bypassing all the electrics and just going to energise the starter motor. Take that off. And let's put the nuts back. Right. Alright, here we go. They've got a very sad battery. Try this one. Oh, that seems to be very good. So, we'll wait till we get our compression tester and start doing compression testing. Well, I reckon now we can't really do much until we get that compression tester. Right, well, let's put this switch back together. I haven't done a very good job. It might look alright there, but it just isn't very good. I think eventually, you know what, I might just redo it, polish it, take all that paint off and polish it. But for starting the thing, I just wanted it to be the kill switch and the start to run. So I'm just going to pop this little terminal out here. There's a spring behind it as well. Now these things, I'm going to use a magnet because these little suckers are going to roll it everywhere. There's a ball that goes in here as well. I just don't want to lose any of this stuff because if I do, I am screwed. Oh, come on, get out. Right, so that's the one that goes behind the detent ball. Now, this thing looks absolutely stuffed. It's all blistered. It's not very good at all. I'm just going to try something in terms of wetting it, hitting it with some wet and dry. Now, these things are subject to an incredible amount of UV abuse. Now, by doing this, it's a similar sort of thing to what you do with sort of opaque headlamps, if you know what I mean. You sort of try and get that top layer of affected plastic off, and then you're kind of hopefully left with something that's reasonably presentable. Now, you can see that it's starting to come good there. So I'm just going to have a go at going at sort of improving the look of this thing a bit. This may be too far gone. It's really, really chalky. The plastic's just degraded so much. If I get a screwdriver in here, I'm just not sure I can do anything with that in terms of making it look presentable. I may well have to get one of those repro switches after all. I didn't really want to. Anyway, whatever, we'll just scrape the paint out of here. This is where the detent ball runs. In that area there, over here. So I don't want that paint turning to chewy when there's grease on the ball. So we'll just scrape the paint out there. Right, so we're starting to clean the switch up. You can see there's the starter switch here. I've cleaned those up. They look rather lovely. I've just used this stuff here. It's a clean and lube. It's a solvent-based thing, but it does get rid of a whole lot of snot that you don't want. And this switch, for example, was really, really tacky. As in sticky with old grease. This isn't a perfect rag, by the way. It's just somebody's old jumper. And it actually does an incredible job of cleaning it. So it's not sticky on the side anymore. It is a little bit in there with the spring went. Scotch-Brighted. Is that a right word? Scotch-Brighted? Used a bit of Scotch-Brite on there to make those terminals good. The rest of it is to sort of just try and clean up what's there and reuse and put back together. Now, I don't know how successful this is going to be because it doesn't look particularly good. In terms of the restoration work I did on it, I wouldn't call restoration, I'd call a mess. But there's these little terminals, and these are terribly small. I'm using my other glass, but you can see how dirty they are. Now, that is going to be exceedingly easy to lose, and it's just dirty. It's a little bit dirty. It's not pitted, but it's a bit dirty, but it does polish up quite well. Gosh, I'm grabbing gloves and everything. Here we go. Maybe even wet and dry would have been better with this. So that's nice and clean. That'll do. Oh, I can't see it. There's another one in here with a spring behind it too. There's the spring. So this is major fiddly work. And it separates like that. But the moment I let it go, no, it doesn't. It goes like that, you idiot. Bloody hell. Alright, we'll try something else. We've got that in there, sitting located and everything. This is the culprit here with the bridge. There's a little spring and that plastic thing behind there, plus those two contacts. Perhaps we'll lower it over like that. Oh, I don't know. This is just not going well. Okay, so that's centralised. I'm going to put the... Where's that? Where is it? Oh man, not now, please. This is what happens when you have a dirty work area. If I try and snap that in. I wonder. Right, $64,000 question. Good. It works. Having said that, it is far more positive. I'm just going to give it a drink. That'll just soak in. This is like, it feels like solvent. And it's cold. It feels like a solvent, but it's actually got a lubricant in it that's good for switches. So that's perfect. That's great. All right then, so that can just, the rest of that can evaporate off, and I'll start doing the other one now. Got the rest of the switch apparatus here. Of course, we've got this terminal block. We've got to clean that up and solder it on because it goes in. You have to put through the housing first. There's a little E-clip there, a couple of retainers. Good thing to have as a mechanic's magnet handy because this stuff is going to roll into the middle of next week. If you lose track of it, you never see it again. So we've got to put the kill switch together now, and I'm going to start by taking this out. That was a soldered bit there, and you can see it's a bit mangy. Same thing as last time. We've just got to clean the terminals off on a bit of, well, it's rolling around, a bit of Scotch-Brite. Cleans it up immaculately. There's probably a little bit of snot still there, so maybe give it a spray with that Wonder Spray. Make sure whatever you do, you get a can of this stuff. It is absolutely great. That's much, much better. That's cool. Just soldering these things back on. The key to this is to make sure that there's enough clearance between the switch and the housing when you put this in. So that will sit like that, and there just needs to be enough clearance there so it's not going to touch when that's mounted. More trickery, I've got this little terminal here which is fairly symmetrical. And there are two springs. This one goes on this side, the terminal, for bridging these two here, and that should spring behind this. This little ball, this is where you need a mechanic's magnet close, and that ball will sit there. Of course, that's the detent for the switch. Now I'm going to have to pop a little bit of grease. I might put a bit of grease behind that ball so it sort of comes onto here, this bit here, and then we've got to pop that into here and then put the clip in from behind it. Just behind it. And I've just put a little tiny bit on these serrations here. I don't want it clagging up and doing anything it shouldn't. Had I known it was this fiddly, I'll tell you what, I would never have undertaken this. I probably just would have bought a repro one. Right, so we need to put that through. Which bloody way does it go? It goes like that. So if I hold it, that should be the switch in there. So I'm just going to pop that E-clip over in there. And this is going to be fun as well. Got it fit in now. Good. So I'm just going to turn that little clip around. It's a little E-clip. And if you turn it around onto the back side there, it can't possibly come out. Good. Okay, let's just see if it works. Good. And then these mother suckers go in. There's one more serre that sort of goes on, and it's over there. It's just in there, and that's going to be a bit of a pain to do as well. But given that it's the last thing we need to do, I'm reasonably happy about it. So it's imperative that this sort of sits together and doesn't short, which there needs to be a clear way out for the wiring. And I think we're good. So That should be cool. So that'll give us a way to start it. Before you'd push the button and it'd like, it'd almost come out, but it just wasn't as positive as that. Nor was that. So I'm very happy with how they're working. That's fine for starting and running the engine, then killing it. So that's good for now. I haven't put the throttle sleeve on yet. When I get the cable sorted out, I'll do it all then. That can just stay there. It's nice and out the way. And I'll just give it one more test and it should be good. At the end of the day, though, this is tested out a second time beautifully. It doesn't matter, really, if this didn't work out. I can just hotwire it and just have a switch for starting it and killing the engine as well. So it's not a big deal, but probably a bit of a wasted exercise, but I'm not worried about it. Now, if we test the engine and there's no oil pressure or there's dead cylinders, well, the next chapter is going to be all about pulling the bits off the engine to get it fixed, or at least start fixing it up. So we're hoping, or at least I'm hoping very much, even though some people have expressed that they'd like to see me pull the engine apart, I actually don't want to do it. I want this bike to be just sort of a sympathetic restoration. So at the end of the day, the next video is either going to be about pulling the engine apart or doing the carburetors. So thanks very much for watching. Enjoy Classic and I'll see you later.